Hi everyone, Chris A here from Chasms. This is a shortish video that I hope will help some of you who may be interested in exploring the world of energy-based safety and the crossover into AI, in particular the use of the SCL or Safety Classification and Learning Model and the opportunity to turn your lag data into leading indicators. You might not know Chasms has been developing assets for the New Zealand environment for some years now, based mainly on the work of the Construction Safety Research Alliance in Colorado. Energy-based safety's been around for a long time, and the concept is relatively simple. We know that, mainly that physical harm occurs because humans are exposed to one or more sources of energy. Those types of energy have been classified into an easy-to-use mnemonic called the energy wheel. The energy wheel is used in many ways, but has been proven to increase hazard recognition by up to 30% on site. So that's great. Energy-based safety, or EBS for short, is also particularly useful when thinking about critical risk, which of course is a focus area for the recent Health and Safety at Work Amendment Bill, soon to be before Parliament. In that bill, businesses are being asked to focus specifically on risks that are likely to cause a fatality or serious injury or illness, an SIF or SIF for short. EBS is a great tool to help focus businesses on critical risks because of its very clear and scientifically defensible definition of high energy hazards, those being hazards above 1500 joules, the threshold for where the most likely outcome of a human coming into contact with 1500 joules of energy or above is likely to be a SIF. What EBS does is provide direction on the strength of controls that should be applied when humans are exposed to high energy hazards. For more information on this, please visit the Chasms website, where there are free resources to assist you. The area of EBS that I want to talk about today is the Safety Classification and Learning Model. All of this is available in this research paper by Professor Matt Halliwell and his colleagues at the CSRA. I'll put a link in the notes so you can find it. In particular, shout out to Matt, Sid, Fred, who have all appeared on Chasms webinars and are friends of the show, so to speak. The SCL model is also available in Matt's book, Energy-Based Safety, which I'd highly recommend to you if you want to delve deeper into this area. Okay, let's start with a quick overview of the model itself. Yeah, so here's just a short presentation about utilising the SCL model. So look, as I said before, here's a citation for the original paper that I mentioned again, just a link to this paper in the notes. Let's start off with safety classification and learning model is, I guess, first underpinned by science, and that's energy-based science, which is really important, and particularly in this world where we are often asked to defend our decisions that we make about why we look at certain things. It's thoroughly tested. There's been a lot of field testing on it, which the CSRA have done and others. It enhances shared learning, and it's really a useful thing to create more meaningful safety metrics, and in particular, safety metrics that aren't just reports of things that have happened, but things that show you how strong your control environment might be, or things that might happen. Consistently and reliably classify and define incidents and observations, really important. We want to see that consistency and a common language across all businesses. Avoids ambiguity, it's very clear, it's black and white, and the definitions are easy to agree on. It's based on 4 questions. Was there high energy? Was there an incident? Was there a direct control? And was a serious injury sustained? So was there high energy? Look, these are the types of energy that we consider, but we aren't limited by this, but this is a good start. That box on the very far right-hand side, other, is there is a free energy calculator as well for things that you might like to consider that also might present more than 1500 joules worth of energy. But these are the categories you start off with, and these have been turned into obviously metrics for the New Zealand environment. Was there an incident? Now this is really interesting. So an instance where a high energy source was released and where the worker came into contact or or was in the proximity to the high energy source. So that proximity thing is really important, which is the third point. So you might actually have the worker coming into proximity, an instance with unrestricted egress where the boundary of high energy exposure is within 2 meters of a worker, or any distance to any high energy source where there is restricted egress from the energy source. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. And what it's really showing you is basically saying that, hey, this 1500 joules, when it comes into contact with a human, it's actually just medical science that shows that you're more than likely at that stage to end up with a serious injury or a fatality. Next bit, was there a direct control? There's a very clear definition of what a direct control is. It's got to be targeted. So it's specifically targeted to the source of high energy. It's got to be strong, which means that it effectively mitigates the exposure to the energy source when installed, verified, and used properly. And it's got to be forgiving. So it's got to work even when the human might not be operating the control correctly. So in other words, it's got to be foolproof. So it remains effective even if the unintentional human error occurs after the installation. And the idea, of course, is that these direct controls act as a really simple barrier to 1500 joules, so the human is actually not exposed to the 1500 joules even if it is released. So look, within the paper itself, there's a flow chart which you can go through. I've actually converted this flow chart into a slightly simpler version. It's exactly the same, just my OCD kicking in. We've got the decision diamonds where they should be and the outcomes all stretched across the bottom. We'll just briefly go through this. Was high energy present, yes or no? So that's that 1500 joules around that category. Was there a high energy incident? So was the energy actually released, and was the human within the proximity of that? Was a serious injury sustained? Obviously, you've got high energy PSIFS if that does happen, pretty easy to classify. If no, was a direct control present? We'd mentioned those conditions of a direct control. If it was, and that means there's actually capacity, and that's actually a good thing, right? So it means that the controls are working. If it wasn't, that's a potential SIF. And that's an area of, hey, look, you're just lucky. That didn't happen. Was it direct control? If there wasn't a high energy incident, so high energy was there but it wasn't released, was a direct control present? Yes, that means that was a success. No, you've got workers working under exposure. So that could have actually released, but even though it didn't, you're still actually working under exposure. Obviously, over the right-hand side, if it wasn't high energy, you can still have a SIF under a low energy scenario, but these tend to be not a focus of critical risk and more, let's call them random in nature. And if we have no, then obviously that's a low severity near miss, and it's often quite useful when we get a whole lot of near miss reports to know the difference between all these. Obviously, if you've got capacity or success, that's a big tick because you've actually either got a strong control environment, so that's a really good leading indicator, or if you've got a PSIFS or an exposure, that's actually another type of leading indicator which says this is where your focus needs to be, hence the little red magnifying glass. So again, really useful. So what we're sort of thinking of doing here is how do you turn your lagging incident reports that you've probably got a whole host of them, a lot of information built up over years that people have been reporting, and actual events, near misses, that kind of thing. How do you turn that into essentially these types of indicators? And that's what we're going to get into next. So here we have an SCL prompt. So we've my alumni friend John Harper Slade originally wrote this or assisted in writing this. It's available for free, so if you need it, just download it off the notes. But here we go. So we've got a prompt there which really just describes how we want our scenarios to be analysed, which takes directly from the SCL rulebook. If this is going too fast at any stage, just pause it, no problem. So that's what the SCL prompt looks like, again available. I'm just going to upload that SCL prompt. I think I'll pick ChatGPT to start off with, no particular reason. So there's my SCL prompt in the form of an Acrobat document. And then I'm going to very politely ask ChatGPT to analyse, probably analyse spelt the wrong way, the following scenario. So I have some canned scenarios, and again, those are available for you to download as well. And I think it's a great learning opportunity to apply those scenarios to the SCL prompt, and you'll get what I mean, and you can reproduce what I've done here. Again, you can just pause the screen if you want to have a good read through. But basically, we've got a situation here where there's a potentially the danger of someone getting electrocuted while they're raising a high ab boom into electrical power lines, which they may or may not know are there. So I've put that in, and now ChatGPT goes ahead and uses my prompt to analyze that text that I've just entered. And of course, as safety managers, we get a lot of this kind of reports coming in from the field about what happened. Some of them are quite detailed, sometimes not so much. The large language model is only going to be as good as the one that you picked. In this stage, it's a picked exposure. So if you think back to that SCL flowchart, it's got to the bottom and said, hey, actually, people were exposed. You've got a potential high energy release here, and they're working under exposure. So here's Claude, same thing. What I would say is please feel free to use Claude, ChatGPT, any large language model of your choice for the sample information, i.e. the information that I'm using here. If you wanted to use real information from your organization, please have a deep think about which AI you choose, one that's consistent with your own internal AI policy, mainly ones that you hope will keep your data on premises. So the next model that I use here, which will be Copilot, actually does that for us, but that might not be the case for you. So I don't want to get anyone fired here by putting data into the wrong place. So just be careful about that. So you can see here again, we've called it an exposure, which is all good. And here's Copilot, same thing. I always find it quite interesting because you're not always guaranteed to get the same result as well. But generally, I find them pretty consistent. If you don't get the same result, you can actually ask them why, and they'll give you some quite good reasoning. And I have one of the scenarios that actually happens in. You can go through and find that out yourself. So there you go, same scenario, slightly different flow, slightly different information coming back, but you get the message there. It's actually doing that work for you, and it's actually telling you why it's actually made each decision, which is really helpful. And again, really helpful to think about that from a training perspective and getting familiar with the model. Again, just going through a lot of data in there that you can use for yourself with the team, and it's come back with an exposure again. Just to remind us what the flow was here. Was a high energy present? Yes. Was there a high energy incident? No. Was there a direct control present? No. Therefore, it was an exposure. Now, I mentioned that sometimes they don't always come up with the same result, these large language movies. So large language models. So look, I've got another one here, another one of my test scenarios. It's a rail scenario that I've just put in, where someone maybe gets too close to an active rail line and doesn't see it. You can actually pause the screen and have a look at it if you want, have a good read through that scenario. But I'll put this one, again, I'll start with ChatGPT. I haven't had to put the prompt back in again because it's already remembered the prompt. And it started its feedback process, and this time it's going through its sequential sort of questions that I've asked it to as per the prompt, and it said it's an exposure. So that's the first LLM, which was ChatGPT, came back with its version of it. So what I might do now is just sort of go, and you can do this yourself as well. Again, exposure's there. I might go to Claude, do the same thing, exactly the same scenario. I've said I'm actually getting less polite. I just said here's another one. Claude's going to go and do its thing now. runs pretty similar in terms of its logic because it should. It's working off the same prompt, and it's going to come through and give you some feedback on it. And it said PSIF, potential SIF. That was different from what ChatGPT told me, if you can remember. And let's just have a look at what Copilot might do then. I've just said, what about this one? Let's put that sample in there. Copilot's going away, having a think, going back in the same logic, and all pretty similar so far. Coming back again, and it said that it was an exposure, but in brackets, bordering on PSIF, but not quite. And then it's given you a little bit of a justification on there about why that might be. So we've kind of got 2 exposures and 1 PSIF. I might go back to, let's go back to ChatGPT, and I'm just going to go, well, why wasn't this a PSIF? And there you go, and it's told me. So again, I'm sort of learning about the model, and it's all coming back to whether high energy was released or not, and about proximity. So again, the more information that you put in there, the better result you'll get. And sometimes, when you get these scenarios pushed through to you, there's not much information, and you actually have to go back a couple of times and keep adding information until you think you might get a good analysis from it. So yeah. So as I said, we have a number of scenarios here which we'll put in the notes, and you can download them and play with them yourselves. I won't ruin all your fun, and I won't bore you by going through all of them, but as you can see, they're all designed to actually flow through the SCL model and give you different results. I would say that you'll see down the bottom here, there's scenario 4 and number 5 are very, very similar. And what I want you to do there is actually run through scenario 4, see the result, and then what happens, and you see this lettering here in bold, I just added a bit more information, and you'll see that when you run it through again after adding that information, how it changes the SCL categorization, which again is really interesting, and really useful, and a good example or illustration for the more information that you put in there, the better result that you'll get. So back with me, just ending up, guys. Look, hopefully that was useful. As we said, we didn't invent energy-based safety. It's been around for a long time. I know there's some of you, I call them interested parties. Maybe some would call them little safety trolls out there, just ready to tell us about how nothing is new in the world. But look, this is just supposed to be useful at this stage. I think the real use is in 2 parts. One is just it's a way of actually understanding energy-based safety without actually having to implement the whole of energy-based safety, almost like a shortcut hack back into it using the test scenarios. The other thing you can do, I guess, as a health and safety manager, when you've got a whole lot of data in your organization about events, that sometimes, people spend a lot of time putting information in there and it really just gets turned into a number. Hey, we had, 540 near miss events this year, and we had 560 next year. What about taking that information and actually running it back through in a safe way, in the right AI tool, back through the SCL model using the prompt, and then seeing what you get and seeing how you can turn that lag data from all that stuff that's come in into lead data, in particular trying to identify potential SIFs. So that's telling you where your critical risk work needs to be. And then looking at the exposures, as well, saying, hey, look, this is where people are working in the presence of high energy, and they are likely to be exposed to it because there's not a direct control there. Or it might also tell you, where the strengths of the organisation is in terms of where the success is, and where the capacity is in terms of what you're actually already good at. So, a lot of that's really interesting information, particularly for boards and people you report to, stuff they probably haven't seen before. So look, give it a go. We're more than happy to chat at any time and support you in this journey. Thanks again for watching, everyone. I really enjoyed making this. I really look forward to hearing from yourselves about how you find the scenarios, how you've used the prompt. That'd be really great, actually, if you could get in touch when you have done it. As I said, all our stuff's free and downloadable, the prompt as well as the scenarios. There's our contact details for the Chasms website there, and there's my email address if you want to get in touch. Thanks, everyone.